Welcome to Two Psychics. This is Michael Edley, Evidential medium and mystic, discussing all things spiritual.
Hello, I'm Mary Amy of Two Psychics, an intuitive wisdom coach, tapping into your mystical life and sharing messages I receive about you.
Good evening, everyone. This is medium Michael Edley. Such a pleasure to be here. Our flagship episode for 2026. There is my fabulous co-host, Mary Amy. What is up, Mary? How are you?
Hi, I haven't seen you. We haven't done a podcast in a month, or maybe longer. Was it more than a month? Here we are. It's Two Psychics podcast. It's January 15th, 2026. It's episode 78. It's all about your mindset. And we have a guest tonight, Kathleen Acker, who's the author of best-selling book, The Game of Life. So what's new on the Jersey Shore? I'm here in New York. I'm an intuitive wisdom coach. I receive impressions that come in the form of signs, symbols, messages, past, present, future, and premonition dreams. What about you, Michael, as a medium?
I get to talk to those on the other side. As a psychic medium, psychic energy is the basis of our mediumship. So obviously as a psychic medium, I'm connecting to the energy of past, present, future possibilities. And that is the foundation and the fundamentals behind the mediumship. But mediumship is connecting to those on the other side. And I think why I do this is to show people that the continuity of life exists beyond the physical body. Everything is energy, frequency, and vibration. And we can train ourselves to interpret and understand that language of the spiritual realm. I don't like to explain it as us as humans are grounding our energy, we're raising our vibration, the spirit realm is lowering their vibration, and as a medium I'm reading that language of energy in between signs, symbols, names, letters. Sometimes I'm seeing it, sometimes I'm hearing it, sometimes I'm feeling it, sometimes it's a knowing, and it's utilizing all of our psychic senses, all of our clairs, to interpret that energy, and that's basically the basis of it.
Yeah, and you said the other side, so we both had near-death experiences. In my particular situation, I saw angels, I saw angelic beings, I saw light, and I know that you also sometimes experience angels when you're giving a reading, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's what I call our collective, our loved ones in spirit, combined with the angelic presence around us, whether that's our guardian angels, our guides, the angelic presence that pulls in to protect and guide us, saints, ascended masters. There's a whole realm of energy that we can utilize to connect and get information from. And it's just practicing and learning about our God-given abilities, and then developing that to the fully, the fullest it can be. And that's what I say. It's an ongoing learning and school of life that helps us, ascend and become more and more prepared, I guess, for when that time comes when we cross over. And that's an interesting journey. And that's been part of my mindset of going into 26. It's been a very introspective kind of inward journey that I've gotten back to, and thinking of how short it truly is that we're here. And I think about, half my life is been, it's behind me, and going into 26, I really had to get introspective and think about, how do I want this second half of my life, this portion of it to be, what do I want it to look like? Where do I want to be, when that time comes? And I think for me, it's been a very, I guess, somber inward journey where I've been really meditating a lot, really trying to get to that deeper connection to my soul and truly start aligning more and more with just completely where my soul needs to be on this second half of the journey, and it's been a process, and it's been an unfolding. And I think it could be very tough, taking a step back and truly looking at things for what they are, not how we want them to be. And, where does this journey unfold? Where is the next steps? And how will I approach that? So that's been my mindset, going into this last holiday season and out of that holiday season into this new year of 26. It's been a very introspective, inward journey that I've gotten back to, and it's been good. It's been very good and refreshing. It's been a little nerve-wracking allowing this stuff to unfold and being, I would say we really have to be honest with ourselves and say, what do I want this next half of my life to look at? And I think this is great advice for anyone that is trying to either find their way or unsure or uncertain about what direction they should go in. And for me, it wasn't being unsure or uncertain. It was really just validating my path and how my path's unfolding.
It's about acceptance. It's funny that you're talking about this, because I've been really, really analyzing and looking and regurgitating and trying to figure out, okay, this has been working, but now it's over. And it's about letting go of what's over to make room. And sometimes it's so scary because you're giving something up. Is it going to be okay? Am I going to be okay? Should I let this go? But there's a fresh beginning here. So you have to let go at some point when it's time. And that's why I tune into my intuition. And I'll say, okay, does my gut say yes to this? Should I keep going on this path? If it's taking me down into like not depression, but like negativity. Okay, if I keep doing this, it's too much for too long. And that's what I've let go this past couple of days. I said, that's it. And I was manifesting, I was visualizing all last week where I wanted to go. And then this week I said, okay, let that go. And what am I going to replace it with? And it is about being honest about, where you are and who you are. And are you really what you claim to be? It's like we always say the word surrender. It's about surrendering and maybe you've outgrown something. Now, I was talking about my psychic abilities and I receive these mystical messages, and I'm trying to understand not only when I work with a client, their energy field and what's going on with them, and how do I interpret that and how do I guide them, and then myself. And I'm like, all right, well, you better be doing a good job because you're guiding other people. And that's a lot of pressure. But
it's living your truth, living your truth and bringing that truth to the surface. Absolutely.
Exactly. And tonight we have this guest tonight. And so let's get on to the subject, which is kind of related to what we're talking about. Okay. First of all, let me say our guest tonight, and then we'll go on the topic mindset. Her name is Kathleen Acker, is a spiritual freedom entrepreneur and sovereign living mentor who helps mankind reclaim inner authority, conscious consent, and authentic living. She's the founder of Lawful Foundations 101 and PMA Power Mastermind. You can go to her website while we're on tonight, and you can look, thegameoflife101.com. Okay, so she's a mastermind that teaches how contracts, both spiritual and practical, bind the soul, how to clean up and terminate those not serving the highest good. How is remembering I am igniting our inherent rights of freedom. Her work emphasizes heart-centered coherence and conscious breath as essential to clarity, compassion, and the evolution of higher consciousness. She bridges the metaphysical insight with grounded empowerment for the living men and women ready to live awake, aligned, and abundantly. Okay, so mindset. I just wanted to get that over so when she joins us, I can just bring her out and everybody knows who she is. Okay, so mindset, what is that? It's a person's individual filter, the way they respond to situations, their environment, how they see the world. It can be adjusted. You can change your mindset. And that's kind of what we're talking about, right? We're looking at things from a different perspective or a different way, which You try to get out of the negative and go into the positive. And what exactly does that mean? Well, it means that you're looking at things with maybe a better intention, maybe with hope, maybe with love, maybe with forgiveness, who you surround yourself with, what your goals are. There's a lot to a mindset, isn't there, Michael?
Yeah, absolutely. We can look at a lot of factors, look at what is what is the influence around us? Look at our environment, look at our relationships, look at how we're spending our time, daily, and like what matters to us. We can really focus in on those things and see, is that helping me align with who I am, with where I want to be, with where I'm going? Or do I need to recalibrate and refocus and shift in any of those areas? And I've had a lot of my clients right now. I deal with a lot of business owners. I deal with a lot of people that are navigating, I would say, this new terrain, and they're navigating 26 with a lot of uncertainty. We see a lot of stuff that's going on, in the economic areas of the world. We see a lot of things that are going on in the social areas of the world. We see a lot of things that are being destabilized. And I think a lot of people, come to me wanting answers when I, with what I see, or how do I see things unfolding. And the first thing I always go back to everyone is, take an inward journey and look at where those external influences are around you, and where are those greatest influences, and are they aligned with where you want to be, or are they not aligning with where you want to be? So there's many things that we do have control of, and then there's multiple things that we don't have control of, so we have to kind of break those down. We have to look at, how am I showing up? How am I approaching this? What is my mindset? Am I coming from a place of lack? Am I coming from a place of fear? Am I coming from a place of, uncertainty? And if I am, how can I take a step back, and how can I shift that focus? Or how can I realign? How can I shift my environment to be more conducive and productive? How can I shift, my awareness of how I'm showing up where I'm supposed to be? So I mean, there's a lot of things that we can kind of take a step back, look at, revamp our focus, or realign, and that alone could be a major shift. And then we can look at the external things. Are we trying to put focus and awareness to things that we have no control over? We can't control how other people are going to act towards us, but we can control how we show up. We can control how aligned we are with certain people externally. Maybe there's certain people that you're spending too much time with that you need to refocus and step back from. That's what I tell people. It doesn't matter if this is family, friends, work related. There's certain people that you could spend an hour with, but you can't spend a whole day with. There's certain people you could spend a day with, but you can't spend a week with. There's certain people that you could spend several hours a day with, but maybe you wouldn't be able to live with that person or have them in your environment 24/7. So we have to look at how all those things are affecting us, relationships, our work environment, our home environment, the just overall environments that we're spending our time in, and certain things we have control over, certain things we don't have control over. So focus on the things we can control. How can we bring our best to those situations, and how can we uplift those situations, to be beneficial in us aligning with our soul and moving forward? How can we shift our mindset to not focus on the lack, not focus on the certain things that can pull us into those low vibrating energies? How can we bring our awareness to the high vibrational energies, and that joy, that happiness, and those things that will uplift us? So, I mean, you know all about this, Mary Amy, so do I. And I think it's important for us to bring this information to people, to make everyone aware that, we can't control all the external circumstances, but there's so much internal control that we have in how we show up, and that's where we need to focus, and where we need to regroup and, realign if we don't feel like it's balanced, and we're, feel like we're not grounded, and our energy isn't where it needs to be.
And what I know about mindset is if you are someone who might have come from, let's say you're a victim, I had trauma, you have to realign yourself and release that and let go of that and come from a place that is not that, because that's how you're going to see the world and you're going to bring more of that on. And I'm learning that with this book because I kept re-editing my book, which talks about a lot of my life experiences, and some of them are not good. And every time I'm reliving it. So finally I said, that's it. I edited it all. I put it in a notebook, and I said, okay, now I'm going to just keep going from where I am, because I didn't realize that I was really having an effect on my daily life, because that is not who I am now. And you can make a weakness become a strength, because if you focus on a part of you that would, you say, okay, this, I was hurt here, and let me do a switcheroo here. Let me go into the weakest parts of me and build them up. You can become, I had a speech problem. I ended up going to speech, and here I am doing a podcast. So you can flip things around. We have that choice. We have the power within us to make our lives be whatever we want them to be, and not let the past dictate your future.
Well, and that's the thing. I think there comes a point where we have to look at, whatever our past was and whatever we've gone through, the trials and tribulations of life, we can utilize that to uplift us and get strength from that, learn from that. There is no failure. It's learning, growing, and understanding that we had to learn to persevere through that to be who we are today, to get to where we are. The greatest healers, the greatest entrepreneurs, the greatest creators in this world aren't the people that have had a perfect life. They're the people that have persevered and learned so much about themselves through the adversities they've faced. And now they're on the other side of it. And I think a lot of the focus in like the metaphysical realm is, I've gone through so much, I'm broken, I'm this, I'm that. I think it's to the point where we have to say, okay, we went through that, but now here I am, and I'm going to show up the best I can to be the best person I can be, and to show up for those people around me that need me to show up in the best way possible, because that's what matters, and I think we can shift our mindset from a lack of fear, a less than, a trauma, a guilt, to, okay, I've learned, I've persevered, and I've grown from that. And that's made me who I am now. And now how can I move forward in the best way possible, utilizing all that as a strength and not a weakness,
And the gold is that you have learned, and something that you can then share with others so that they can relate to you, and you can actually help them and say, hey, look, I went through this. I'm not perfect. It wasn't easy for me, and just keep going. And, look, you can have a plan. Like I've looked at some things too about what I'm up to myself in my life and where I want to go. And maybe I don't have it right here, but what I've learned is when I stay on it, eventually I'm manifesting it, because I'm thinking of it, I'm looking at it, I'm investigating it, I want it. So eventually it comes around, maybe not in the time that I want it right at this moment, but maybe I'm not ready for it. I'm learning. Okay, I just want to say that we have a lot of comments here, and I'm just going to mention everyone who's joining us. I would love you to write comments, and I'm going to tell you. Okay, so thanks, Kevin. Looks great. Suzanne, thank you so much for showing up, both of you, and everybody. I hope you like this podcast. Very true, great information, and very helpful. I know Michael has an issue. He can't really see it so well. Lily Jones, great point. Thank you. Great Gracespiration. Here I am.
What's
absolutely
up,
love that. She's actually invited us to be on her podcast. So she's inviting me and she's inviting you.
Yes.
So she wants us to be on there separately. And she has a podcast now. So hi, Grace. Thank you so much.
What's up, Grace? What's up, everyone? Unfortunately, I am on my phone right now, so I can't see all the comments, but Mary can relay them to me.
I relay them.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us here live on Two Psychics Podcast.
Yeah, like our fight.
Very exciting.
Here's our little community. And there's Grace again. Hi, Grace. Here's our community, and we're building it up. And I'm finding how many friends I have just from doing this podcast. And we're opening up. That reminds me, let everybody know who we have upcoming, because our guest is going to be coming on in just a few minutes. We have a paranormal investigative team, January 22nd, next Thursday, David, James, and Brandon. And then at the end of the month, January 29th, we have William Fitzroy, and he's the founder of the Art of the Seer Academy for Psychic Development, and that's going to be very interesting. And the following week on Michael's birthday, which is February. What day did you say?
February 5th. February 5th.
Your birthday. Oh, that's one of my lucky numbers.
Aquarius.
And we are going to
celebrate my Aquarian birthday.
Yeah, we're going to have Kelly Wagner.
Yes.
Who is from she has her magazine, and so that's going to be fun. And we were going to have psychic readings like we did last time. We're going to have an event. We're going to try to bring as many people on as we can and do some psychic readings. And maybe we have to figure this out in a better way so that we're not getting someone else's energy when we're doing a read. I don't know how we're going to figure it out, but maybe we can. Right? Because
remember, we'll blend it all, and it'll, Spirit will work it out. Spirit always.
Okay, all of you have an Uncle John, or yeah. So that's what's going on.
About bringing through as much evidence to narrow it down, and it's funny because that's what I've been doing, a lot of large group readings over the last, the last couple weeks since we haven't been doing the podcast. I've been doing quite a few large group readings, and they're interesting because you get a lot of energy pulling in. And it's interesting when you have two people with a very similar loved one in spirit. And what I find is you just have to keep bringing the evidence in. If someone has a similar if you bring the names and the dates and you just keep bringing the information through, eventually it'll narrow down to who that spirit belongs to, and that's the beauty of evidential mediumship. You allow the information to kind of lead to who it is. A lot of times I know who's being highlighted to me and where I'm supposed to be going, but in a large group, that energy can all blend. It can all blend, and sometimes communication gets a little bit mixed up, or you have someone's loved one trying to piggyback on someone else's loved one, and so that's why it's funny when I'm doing back-to-back readings, even if they're private readings, and I start bringing through information of names, dates, very specific pieces of information that's coming to me, but it's not for the person that's sitting with me right then and there. I make myself little notes now, and I know it's gonna be for the person that's coming after. And sure enough, when I've been doing private readings over the last month, that's kind of a new, and that's why I say we're always learning, we're always growing in our mediumship practice and our psychic abilities. And that's one thing I was like, wow, the person can't take, I brought through such great evidence for this person and a lot of information, but why can't they take this piece? And it was interesting because I heard, well, because that's not my person. And I was like, wait a second. Oh man, somehow I have spirit jumping in on a different reading. So I would write notes. I would take it down. I would kind of push them out, because sometimes, we're in control, but sometimes the energy can get a little overwhelming, and we have to tell them, step back, and we have to kind of harness and control our energy and harness and control the reading. So that's part of the process as a medium.
Okay, so our guest is here. I'm going to remind everyone, I did give you a little description of her, but I'm going to remind you, here we are. It's episode 78. Kathleen Acker, author of best-selling book, The Game of Life. Her website is thegameoflife101.com. She is a spiritual freedom entrepreneur and sovereign living mentor. Okay.
And a perfect guest to talk about mindset, which has been the topic of our conversation.
Yes. Hi, Kathleen. Welcome.
Hello, Kathleen. Pleasure to have you here with Two Psychics Podcast.
It's great to be here. Thank you so much. I'm excited.
We're excited that you're here. Thank you. My name's Mary Amy. This is Michael Edley.
And our topic of conversation has been mindset, which you are the perfect person to join us on this conversation, because you are what appears to be a mindset coach. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and kind of what brought you to where you are now?
Oh yeah. When I was a little girl, I used to have dreams all the time, and and I had great parents that always told me to question all my beliefs because
Mm.
I was in the middle of the word belief, right? So my dad used to say life was like a game, and you look for the hidden in plain sight. So word trickery is one of my things. I love word trickery, but it is all about mindset. And um, I was always encouraged to question, but have a strong faith of, whether someone calls it source or God, um, creator. And I often say God or creator, but with that, your trials and tribulations, my dad and I think Tony Robbins and lots of people say life happens for us, not to us. And that really helps me because when I went through a lot of trials and tribulations, in a 3-year period, I married, you get married and you think that like they're going to protect you and be good. And I got the shit beat out of me and almost died. And during that time, my dad died of a heart attack on the golf course. And then my brother died and my grandmother died. And then a friend died. And it was all within 3 years. And I had moved a lot. And it was just so much of a roller coaster. But my faith got me through and searching. I was living in Florida and I don't know if you've ever heard of Casadega, Florida.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so I went there and saw somebody, and my friend and I went, and I'll get to where we were. It's just a fun story because I was like, well, I got lots of dead people. So you go before me because she's going to be in there with me forever.
Mm.
And so my friend's in there for like 2 hours and she comes out, and this is like 30 years ago. 34 years ago or so. And so I go in there, I'm in there for like 15 minutes and we're done. She's like, you know everything you need to know. She sends me to some bookstore and says, you already have it, but you need to let go. You have two people that are near you and dear to you, and you need to let them go. And I was like, I can't let them go. You want to hold on, and she meant energetically, spiritually, let go. And that surrendering and that theme of faith and having my faith get me through and letting go, surrendering has been a motto through my life. And all of that, overcoming all of it, brought me I was into contracts. I worked in corporate and did contracts, and having a faith, I know that there's spiritual contracts as well as, what I call the matrix contracts, Babylonian contracts. And that's what I did. And when COVID hit, I was working for a little company called Pfizer, and I was in contracts, and I found that natural law, superior law, divine law is real and very effective. And that's what brought me into all of this is I stood up to the giant and questioned them. And I encourage everyone, it's a mindset. I was scared to question them, right? But there was something inside of me, and it was that mission, that purpose, everything that it happened to me in my life happened for me, not to me. And it all built up to that moment when I started standing up and just asking. I was just asking, hey, you want me to stick something up my nose or put something in my body? It's an invasive medical procedure tantamount to emotional and physical and spiritual abuse. So I just need some evidence. And I used natural law. And what came to me, it was these downloads of the words to say. And sometimes when I would be questioned, and it was 2.5 years of back and forth. I continued to work as agreed. They couldn't let me go. And it was just really interesting. Sometimes a voice would come out of me, like this authoritative voice. And I'd be like, who the hell's talking? That is not Kathleen. And it's when you really step into that mission that you're here for, and you get rid of all the garbage of I'm not enough and who am I and I'm not worthy. And you really see more clearly that you do have a purpose here, that we all do, and it's tapping into your superpower.
Yeah,
Love
that's
it.
awesome. And I think that's
Wow.
probably one of the biggest hurdles for us as humans to get over is letting go. What we hear that saying, let go and let God. I think that could be one of the most empowering things we can do, but for most people, it's the hardest thing to do. We want to control things, whether it's coming from an ego or just the life that we've been raised in and experienced is, we want to try to control everything. And I think, as being a medium, I think that was one of the breakthroughs that allowed me to do this at the level I do it at, is letting go and understanding that I'm just the conduit, and there's a higher power, and there's much more powerful energy than me that I can allow to flow through me if I just let go and not try to control it. So yeah, I love that. I love that mindset that you were coming from. And it's interesting, you talk about letting the energy go. I think that's a big thing that people don't understand is, our loved ones aren't gone, even though we lose their physical connection to their body and them being here in the physical body. What I've experienced is deep, profound connection to people that have crossed over, and a deeper connection once they've been in spirit. And I think one thing that I try to explain to people is a lot of times when we're holding on to that grief and that loss and that pain of the loss, that can block out that spiritual connection. That can block out that insight and that guidance from our natural clair senses. Grief can definitely lower the vibration. So I think in that process of not necessarily letting go of grief, I think just morphing it into being something that can uplift us into, a powerful energetic connection, rather than seeing it as something that debilitates us and disconnects us. I think that's part of the process is, again, yeah, allowing that to unfold and letting go. So yeah, man, you explained that perfectly. That is great. And us talking about mindset tonight, and I think a lot of people are experiencing that right now. A lot of people are experiencing this shift, or they know they're meant for more. They know they're supposed to be doing something else, but they have these self-limiting beliefs, or this fear of failure, or they feel like they just can't give up where they are or what they're doing, or who they're connected to allow that to unfold. Now, what would you say to anyone listening that that's caught up in that cycle of the fear of failure, or the negative self-talk? Like what would be a couple recommendations that you would put into play to help someone kind of move past those blockages?
I'm glad you asked that. It's about transformation, and it's about transforming that energy that's coming in. Society has done an amazing job of having us feel limited and unworthy and shame and blame and all of that. I mean, kudos to them. They did a great job, but it's all BS. And so, but it doesn't mean that I don't battle with that every day, because, we all do. But I have a process, and thanks to Pfizer, I was able to perfect it more, because they give me lots of opportunity of standing up. But what I describe is, in any now moment, you can shift that. So I have tools and techniques that I use and that I teach. One of them is heart focused breathing. And if you just pause and just, like, you can do it while you're talking, but just pause and focus on the area of your heart, because your heart starts life, it ends life. So the heart matters. When you put your intention on your heart, it's actually, because it starts life, it is developed before the brain. So when you just pause and just put some intention, as if you're breathing in and out from your heart, and you get into a rhythm, it will calm your internal systems and send messages to your brain. So that's one. So if someone's coming at you, or a low thought, an email came through, or someone yelled at you or is yelling at you, even in the moment, if you think of a figure 8, the infinity symbol on sideways, you feel that energy coming down at you. And then it's like, honor it, feel it, because it's a trigger of something in your past, whether it's generational, because our cells have memory. So it remembers that negative, it remembers that emotion that's coming with that trigger that's coming with it, whether it's trauma in this lifetime or a past one, generational, and honor it. When you can learn to honor it and give it gratitude, then it's coming down, and that is when you have the choice of how you're going to either react or respond. And when you can honor it, feel it, cry. Crying is the soul's way of cleansing. It's your cleansing. And then when you're ready, and it can happen like this, or sometimes my dad used to say, give yourself 24 hours if you need it, but always start shifting after that. And it doesn't mean you're over, it just means you're shifting. But honor it, feel it, cry. And then when you're ready, start breathing. Because when you're stressed out, when you're in a low vibration, you're holding your breath. And our body needs oxygen. Our brain needs it. So when you learn to breathe, whether it's heart focused or anything, just breathing, and then move your body, because your body's so tense when you're in those negative, low vibrational shame, blame, judgment, or whatever. And when you can move, I'm like, get up, dance, whatever it is, just moving and remembering to breathe. Then what you're doing is you're transforming the energy that came in, and you're choosing consciously with intention to shift it. And then you can send it back with gratitude or love. And the person or the situation, it's going to shift it. So, I mean, and that's how, and you said about letting go. I talk about that in my book too. Letting go was very hard when the medium had said, you got to let go. I was like, no, I can't let go. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. They're always there. And I got to say that when I could let go, like you were saying, you can't connect when you're holding on tight. You can't connect. I get messages all the time from my dad, from my brother, from old friends. I had a boyfriend that was killed by a drunk driver, and I was in legal. So I had a case that I was researching, and I was like, you know what, Johnny, give me a sign. I know you're there. Just give me a sign. And I open up and I find a case, and then I'm going through the case, and it was his. I mean, the odds of that were overly rare. And so we can get messages. When you ask, you will receive. Just be open to receiving.
Yeah, it's trusting it, right? Trusting in that message. And a lot of times we want to think, oh, I opened it up and I saw his case and that was a coincidence. Or, people want to discredit or talk about the signs and the synchronicities as, oh, that was just a coincidence. But no, what I say is your collective, that spiritual realm that's around you, your guides, your angels, your loved ones, they are trying to communicate with us as much as we want to try to connect and communicate with them. And that's it. Absolutely what you're talking about is letting go, trusting, and trusting the process. Yeah. And I think, and look, we have some crazy energy going on, because now my phone is just, my screen is flipping for no reason. We have powerful energy manifesting here. So I apologize for my
We're flipping the script.
There we go.
We're getting some comments. I just want to say, there's no such thing as coincidence. Lily Jones says. Gina Garcia says, hello, everyone. I wanted to ask you about contracts, because I'm aware of contracts, but I'm sure you could shed light on this. How many contracts should we be signing? And I'm talking about in the Matrix, you said. Obviously, we have our own spiritual contracts. Can you explain that a little bit for our audience? Because I sense that every day we have to put our name to something, or we have to. It's binding, isn't it? All these contracts. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. That's like, you don't go into contracts. It was like a total guided divine. Like I didn't have a choice, but I did have a choice, right? But contracts was definitely my path. And so what legal ease is, what legal ease is the undoing of God's law. So you're hiring an attorney who has taken an oath to undo God's law. And so when you get a contract and you can't read it because it doesn't make any sense, You're still binding yourself spiritually, energetically to that contract. And so what I did when I was even doing Matrix is I was like, if I can't understand a sentence, why would I have my client sign that? And I'm not an attorney. I don't give legal advice. I negotiated globally with big pharma. I was in manufacturing and I was in retail. And for like 30 years, I did contracts. So if you can't read a contract, then in the beginning, I was like, I can't even understand what that means. What I do now is how many contracts should you be signing? If you get an attorney, and this is my own humble opinion, and you can't understand every word of that contract clearly, and I can guarantee you probably can't because I see them, and I'm like, I'll start questioning them and that's one thing I do in class is someone can give me 1-page document and I start like pulling out all the different ways that we have just been so programmed to assume and fill in and answer. And when I pull one sentence out and just say, so what is this? And you immediately thought one thing, Michael thought another, and then I'm thinking something else. And you didn't even know it because you just read it. And that's the art of legal ease. But when you can start reading it and pulling it out, contracts is something that, because they're spiritually binding, but it's a way for us to express our words. And first there was the word. And that's what I teach is how to really write a contract. And I talk about establishing a ministry in the private, what that looks like, how it feels, and doing contracts in the private with your members. But if you're doing a contract and an attorney gives it to you and you can't read the contract, you don't know what it says, I say don't pay them personally. Rewrite it so that I can comprehend what you just wrote, because that should be their duty, right? That's what you're hiring them for, so that you can comprehend it. But there's adhesion contracts. That's where we've updated the terms of your contract, and like Zoom has it, StreamYard has it, and it's very invasive. If you read those contracts, they're really, so I write them. I write the CEO and the CFO, the man that acts as CFO, and I just say, where your terms, conditions, policies, and procedures violate my God-given rights, I revoke and reject them. And I send it 3 times. And when they don't respond, I have documentation that I've sent it. I usually do a green card. I do this all the time. I'm just like, it's just like something I do. Does that make sense?
Are you allowed to then use their access their apps? Because you're talking about that, I saw just in the last few days for the new year a lot of new terms of use, and you can't use it without, like, I set it for this.
Right. Yeah. And so no, you can, because they can't deny you the right. See, so there's Supreme. We have the Supreme Court, right? Or Supreme, and that's all man-made. And if you look up the definitions of person, citizen, pair that rents, parent, child, student, licensee, any of that, they're entities. Those are all entities. That's the man-made system. So that's supreme. But then there's superior, which is divine law, ecclesiastical, natural, and then equity is how you bring those 3 in. And so that would be equity jurisdiction with maximums. And yes, so what they're doing is they're talking to the entity, the name. Kathleen Ramsey is a name that's created in the matrix. I am a living soul. And so I'm invoking my rights, because I don't care what your role is. I don't care if it's the president of the United States or president of Pfizer or StreamYard. You're a man or a woman, and your first and only main shareholder is mankind. And so where you have a fiduciary duty, the higher your role, the higher your fiduciary duty to mankind, to protect mankind. And so when I call you out on it and I say, hey, John Doe, who acts as CFO or president or whatever the title is for whatever principal, like StreamYard, then where your rights and where your principles, terms, and conditions violate my rights, I reject them. they can't deny that because you invoked a higher superior law. They're standing under you. You are coming in as the king. And that's why you're asking as king. So you're the king because you're as the king. You're asking, hey, is it your intention to trespass on property of I by way of loss or harm or extortion? I mean, what's the purpose of these terms and conditions? StreamYard and many of them right now are getting prepared for us to just obey blindly. And it's invasive to our privacy and our identification. They're trying to say, hey, if you don't act right, and I don't act right, according to a lot of, policies and procedures and titles. So if you don't act right, then we can remove your video, right? YouTube did that to me, and I sent them a thing and they put it back on. I sent them a notice. I just write notices left and right.
So now, talking about contracts here in the physical, let's shift this conversation a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about a topic we hear a lot: soul contracts, energetic ties, that connection. Let's talk a little bit about that. Can you give us a little insight and guidance around that, about potential soul contracts from either past lives, things that we've agreed to before we incarnated into this physical existence, and how do we navigate that, and how do we break those soul contracts if need be?
Yeah, and intention is very important. So we have these soul contracts that we come down here with, and they can be generational, right? Because science has shown us that our cells hold memory. We know that from Dr. Emoto, a Japanese doctor. There's videos on him, and he did tests with water, and water holds memory. Our cells have water in them, so they're holding the memory. And then there's studies that show that mice have 7 generations that go back. So if we are anything, they test mice to be like humans. So if you go with that scientific study, then we would hold at least 7 generations of memory of trauma in us. And then whether that's a past life or generational life, depending on who you're talking to, then you've got the trauma from your own life because of how you perceived something. And so when you want to clean that, it's like when you can go past life regression and look and see and observe situations differently, you can start to let go and forgive. And the forgiveness is for us, right? But one of the things that I teach in, I have a group called The Missing Link, is we petition the courts of heaven. So we walk through an entire process of forgiving, of letting go, of acknowledging different people or situations or whatever comes up, and saying, I choose to let this go. Where do I feel it in my body? Because it's probably where a block is. And letting that go and petitioning. When you're going to go, you're creating a petition to go to the courts of heaven, so to speak. And you want to say, hey, please forgive me. I'm sorry. I love you. I love everyone. And thank you. But when you're going to do that, you want to have, how can you be of service? How can you remedy? Because the art of contracts is truly giving remedy, restoration to yourself and to others. So if you've harmed me, then I need to give remedy. And it should be fair and reasonable. And that's honor. So you want to come in honor. And what that does is it cleans your hands, because it's cleaning that cup within. We can't really love another or honor another if we can't honor ourselves. So it's about self-governance and self-cleaning. So you're cleaning that inner soul, that inner cup, so that you can pour without and go without, because as within, so without. So it's about cleaning that and coming with clean hands and just letting go and forgiving. But it's a process, and it's not a one and done by any means. It's a constant. And you can make a game out of it. You can just do it in a minute after you. It's like a marathon. You don't run 10 miles the first day. You build up. and you get that stamina going so your mind and body can get used to that. So the more you practice doing it, the quicker it can be.
Mm.
Does that help?
Yeah, good stuff. That's interesting. Now, one thing we hear people talking about are energetic ties, or cutting the energetic cord. Can I cut that cord to disconnect from some chaotic energy that may be attached to me? What are your feelings and beliefs around that, and what can be done if there is an energetic link or an energetic cord attaching us to something or someone?
And you can feel those cords. You can feel those cords. You know what? I invite everyone to never cut a cord, because you're leaving things out there. I know some people like to say cut cords. I say record it. So when you take a cord and you're recording it, it's a record. It's a record, right? So record it to source, to God. So it's more of a loving act for yourself and for them. Say, hey, I no longer, and mentally, energetically, spiritually say, I forgive you and I love you, but I no longer want this connection. And so I'm going to record this connection to source and not to me anymore. And that's a loving act for them and for you. So I just invite people to not cut cords, just because it feels like, to me, if you're cutting something, if you're severing something, then where's that energy going? Because it's out there, you know?
So you're basically repositioning the cord.
Yeah. Yeah, like in the Matrix, like, hey, I don't want your cord anymore. Here you go.
No, I like it. That's
I love it.
That's a very interesting perspective on it. It makes sense.
Do you have a copy of your book you can hold up so everyone can see it?
I do. It's the Game of Life. I was going to write a completely different book, and I do automatic writing. So I wake up like at 3 or 4 in the morning. And I had contacted an editor, and we were getting ready for our second meeting. And I woke up like at 3 in the morning, and I was like, I'm writing the Game of Life. And she was like, I think there's already a book. And I'm like, yeah, I have it. Florence Shovel Shine. I've read it so many times, it doesn't even have the cover. And she was like, well, so she researched it and said, yeah, you can name it that. So it's redefining your beliefs. Remember, lie is in the middle of the word, and discovering your true power. And I give a lot of stories in there. And I also use 7 of the natural laws and applying that. And one of them is the law of one. And even while I was writing it, I was like, I really want to comprehend the law of one, because we've been so programmed to divide and separate and not be one. And really diving in, and when you can start thinking that everyone is a different version of you, at first it can be very hard, because you're like, that person that did this horrible thing is not a version of me. And I just invite you to think that maybe it's in your generation.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about that, the law of one, for anyone out there that's listening that isn't familiar with that? Can you give us a little background on that?
Yeah, the law of one is just that it's one heartbeat. We all start life with one heart. So there's a collective consciousness that connects us all. And so that's all one source. We're all from one source. We were all created from one source. So when you think about, no matter if somebody did something horrific, you're like, how could that possibly be me? But I just invite you to think that maybe somewhere in your generation, if that's easier to think about, somebody did something for whatever reason, because we all rationale in our mind when we do anything. And you don't know someone's experience. And so the law of one is, when someone's yelling at you, comprehending that it's happening for you and not to you, number one, and realizing that they have a trigger and you don't know what it was that you said or did, or even if it was something that happened before that's having them react that way to you. And just in a loving way saying, I don't know, you don't have to know what it is, but sending it back with love, because whatever is in me that triggered that person, it's just showing up. And I'm just going to send them love because I know that that's part of me I'm sending love to. That's a part of me that maybe I don't like. If you think about it, do we not harm ourselves all the time, unknowingly or knowingly? We eat poisonous food all the time because it's convenient, right? We might know the food is not good for us, but we do it. Sugar's not good for us. I love sugar. Okay. I give it up and it's really hard. But there's things that we do to ourselves. So the law of one is really, it's the I am. It's the energy and the frequency of I am. And I am is, I'm not going to do harm, but I'm going to bring honor. And I'm not going to let you do harm to me either. Mm-hmm. And I think one way to look at that is when I was in an abusive marriage, a priest, shocking or not, told me that God did not put us here to be abused. And so in order for us to be in honor, we have to honor ourselves. Mm-hmm. And by honoring ourselves, we honor God, but we're also honoring the other person, whoever's doing it to us. So my ex was, he learned from his mom and dad to be abusive. When I showed him my boundaries and said no more, I'm showing him he can do that. I'm showing him how he can stand up. I'm showing him love by saying no more and removing myself from the situation. So it's a trifecta.
Mm-hmm. No, that's fantastic. And I do think it's important for everyone to understand, the meaning behind that. And, you hear a lot of spiritual advisors, psychics, mediums, everyone, talking and healers talking about, we're all connected. We're all connected on an energetic level. I think that gives people some insight and some guidance around why do people think we're all connected, and why do we all come from, that same energetic beginning. And we do. I think if we look at things, even like quantum physics, we get down to the smallest minuscule aspect of energy, wherever it started and wherever it extended to, we all came from that, and it's important. And another great point, I think you talking about how people, can project their own insecurities, their own fears, their own pain onto other people. And I think that's a big perspective that we need to understand. Everything we're experiencing, a lot of times people want to think that, how did I cause that? What did I do to create that in my life? Well, maybe you didn't. Maybe they're projecting something onto you. And if you could take a step back and look at the energy of the situation, or look at it from that I am perspective, look at it from that law of one perspective, we could see, well, okay, they're projecting their own insecurities, their own pain, their own trauma onto me. And what can I do to not be a victim of that, or to show this person that there's another option for them. There's another way for them to treat people. There's another way for them to see that perspective. No, I love that. I love your take on that. But what would be your recommendation if someone is kind of stuck in that, that victim mentality, and just, can't break through to release themselves from that chaotic energy cycle, whether that's a relationship, whether that's a job, whether, that's some kind of family tie? What would be your recommendation? What would be the baseline? Okay, this is where we start, and this is, the small steps that we want to try to take to move forward.
Yeah, and it's really hard when you're stuck in that. I mean, and I'm going to bring up society, because society, we're fed that all day long from different sources and everything. We're shown how to stay in the victim mentality. Mm-hmm. And I could have been in the victim mentality, being beat and losing one person after another and moving and everything. It is a choice, and like I said, it's not like mindset is something, it's constant. Yeah. You can be in a good mood, and then an hour later, you don't even know why, but energetically something shifted. So there's a couple things you can do. First of all, just question, is it true? That's one of the things, like, so society has done a great job of making us fit into a box, right? Yeah. It's doom and gloom. There's no way out. I have to obey. I have to feel like this. There's no way out of the situation. And then I just invite you to think, is that true? I mean, is that true? Because society wants you to think like that, but that's not the reality. There's a different reality. And that reality is when you start to say, what's the best possible outcome? And I've been in this situation about 2 years ago almost. And I was like, oh my God. And I know better, that's why I could get myself out. But I was like, this is doom and gloom. There's no way out. And da, 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 da. You say that. And then I was like, okay, is that true? And for a while, I wanted to be like, yes, it's true. And then I was like, okay, maybe it's not true. And then ask, because when you ask to see it differently, what is the best possible outcome? Well, the best possible outcome is like, couldn't possibly happen. Great, go with that one. Because when you start to ask, you'll see that there's layers of different opportunities and different best possible outcomes. And then when you keep asking and you start breathing and moving your body, it becomes multidimensional and you can see all kinds of possible outcomes. And you see the other side of the fence and not the doom and gloom. Here is fear. Here is the other side of fear. When I was facing Pfizer and standing up to them, at first I felt, and I remember the moment, I was like, oh my God, the whole world is going to crumble. There will be freedom's gone forever. We're just going to have to obey. And then I was like, is that true? And I was like, yes, it's true. And then I was like, okay, maybe it's not. And I started to see it differently. And then I got my download and I came in and I wrote, and I was like, energetically, there was a shift that happened. So when you're feeling doom and gloom, just go ahead, feel it and honor it, but then ask, because there's so many options out there. There's best possible solutions. And I fear not doing something. So when I'm feeling here, I fear not doing this. Okay, because my option is never going to be inside of a box. I break out of boxes. I can't. I'm like claustrophobic. I don't want a box. Does that
Kathleen,
help?
I was going to ask, do you sense that, and I know you have a lot of awareness on both ends of it because you're dealing with, you said, the matrix and the contracts that we see every day in our culture, and that versus the spiritual. Do you sense that there is a big shift coming where it's going to be eliminated, a lot of these contracts, because more awareness, people have more awareness and they're not going along with it so easily anymore?
Yeah, I really do. I feel like the shift, and I think a lot of us are feeling like a shift is happening. There's a wave of us here that, and I was talking today in a class, we're here and we often feel like we haven't done enough, but it's like we're building the town, we're building the systems, because the walls of Jericho are falling, they're crumbling, but they can't crumble until we've already started to rebuild and reestablished. It's not like they're going away, they just need to be transformed, right? Like family court, I mean, completely transformed. And there's lots of systems that need to be completely transformed, but that can't happen until we've already started to build what's going to replace it. And I think that will happen quick. So what's happening is you're seeing in different ways already the structures are being rebuilt, the communities are being rebuilt, the mindset is being rebuilt. And instead of thinking, I have to obey, you're thinking, what are all the great, amazing possibilities that where I don't have to. I know some of my clients, especially across the pond, I say, fear the real ID. And I'm like, we're going to knock it out. There's a solution. We don't have to obey. When we can get 10% of the people to stop obeying, we don't have to. And I'll give you an example. And when people were supposedly getting pulled off the plane, I flew 6 times. I flew from St. Louis to Boston a couple times. I flew down to Austin. I never wore a mask. I didn't wear a mask through the airport. I didn't wear a mask on the plane. I was literally the only one in all those airports. And I sat on the aisle seat. I talked to the steward, coming up and down. I talked to the pilots. I said hi. I was invisible. It was like having Jedi powers. And like, you don't see me. And I think that we all have that, but there's this separation that's coming. Some people might have a bad experience. And let me give you an example. I was driving down to Florida, and I stopped in Atlanta, and I met some friends. I stayed at the Marriott and had a great time, went out to dinner. But when we were going out to dinner and we were leaving the hotel, I was like, oh yeah, I wanted to go see this one thing over here. So we went out a different door, went to dinner, came home in the car the next day. And I talked to a friend, and she's like, oh my God, did you see all the riots? I'm like, what are you talking about? She said, where did you stay? And I said, I stayed at the Marriott. And she said, there was riots all around the Marriott. Not in my world. Not in my world. So you can have two worlds going on and not experience it. And that's happening more and more. Some people are going to experience more trauma because life happens for us, not to us. And that's what's going to help them level up in consciousness. And faith requires action. And that's when, on the Hawkins scale of consciousness, courage and empowerment's at a 200 level. And we get courage by taking that action. And when we can get enough to courage and empowerment, I think it really ignites that the superpower within, the mission within, and then you're just going to see people exploding in like in a great like emergence of beauty, of stepping into who they are, the spiritual being of who they are, not the ego that they are. They're going to wash that ego away and remember who they are more.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel, we're building momentum. We're building momentum. We're raising our vibration. We're making our energetic self more impervious to those lower vibrating issues, problems, pain, trauma, that fear. And yeah, that's one thing I think people don't realize is how powerful we can shift, how powerful the energetic shift can be if we build that momentum and we stay the course. A lot of times people, I guess they'll get discouraged, or they don't see the results right away, or think this should have happened yesterday. But if we keep building on those small steps, the momentum just keeps growing, and it shifts our energetic self in amazing ways. And I think that's half the battle is, being patient and allowing it to unfold in a time that may be beyond what we feel should, how it should be unfolding, and we have to have that patience. We have to allow it to happen, be that conduit for positive manifestation. But yeah, I love that. I love your mindset around that. And, I've experienced a lot of similarities, and what's interesting is I take what we're seeing now. They say, what we're seeing now unfolding in 2026 is very similar to the cycle we saw unfolding in 2008. We saw a lot of economic turmoil. We saw a lot of issues around societal injustice, or what people feel is societal injustice, politics, economics, the housing market, the job market. So we saw, people are saying, well, that's happening again. Well, I could tell you my energetic shift through 2008 was growing, expanding, building a company beyond my wildest dreams. And I think a lot of it has to do with our mindset. Where are we putting our focus to? What are we allowing into our energetic fields? Yeah, absolutely. How are we moving forward? So I love your aspect of two, there could be two similar realities coinciding. And what's the one we're going to focus on? Where are we going to shift our energy so we're manifesting positively? We're building positive momentum. We're not allowing that negativity to permeate our energetic field. And granted, we can all get caught up in negative circumstances, and we can all, things happen. Life can happen. Life can get in the way. But how quick you persevere through that, I think, is going to be impacted on where is your mindset, where is your energetic center, and how are you moving forward with that? So yeah, I love you bringing that perspective in of two simultaneous realities can occur. It's what one are you going to focus on?
And you did say earlier, what is the one thing you can do? First of all, when you start and end your day with intention, your whole day is going to go better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you're building your own rhythm. We're so used to society. Like if you're in corporate, you get up at a certain time and you're running late and you're stressed out and you're in traffic and you're going through their schedule. And what I did is I woke up at the same time. I used to walk at the same time, as long as it wasn't freezing. Then I would work out inside. But I have several things. I read something every day. And it helps me on my mindset so that I stay focused. If you work out, and I don't mean you have to go do a major workout, but when I would walk, it would clear my head and I would eat better throughout the day because I had started my day with that. When you read your intentions for the day, like I have, that I'm truly grateful for and ready to know my soul's purpose and destiny. I'm open to receiving my purpose. I'm dedicated to take the consistent action to create the divine results that I agreed to prior to this life's birth, and to expand on my purpose for the greater good of mankind, for the divine good of all. And then I have a little bit more. But I read that, and I don't just read it once because it's energy in motion. So first we have a thought, and the thought's just like a lot of us are drifters. There's the book called Outwitting the Devil. Not scary. It's on YouTube. It's two people having a conversation, two men having a conversation. One's very egotistical. That would be the devil. And then the other one's interviewing him. And it's a drifter mindset. So you have your thoughts and you're not directing them. You're not feeding your thoughts. You're not having, I have Audible, and I'm constantly feeding my thoughts so that I can stay focused on the goal and then the mission. And so it's what you're feeding your thoughts. So your thoughts, if you think of a guitar, you have one end where the string goes in, and that's your energy and motion, because your thoughts are going to create emotion, energy and motion. And then, the other nod is at the other end, and that's your either reaction or response. And so you're going to fine tune your, oh man, I reacted, I didn't respond. What do I need to do? I need to feed my thoughts, the string, differently, so that I can get my energy and motion to have the right response that I need. And so we have so much more control than we think we did. It's taking back that game controller. And when you can see life as a game and not as happening to you, but as a game to play, and let's all join, let's create a great team, let's win. Let's just stop saying yes and start saying, questioning government, stop obeying. They are our servant. Anytime a man or woman takes a title, president, janitor, teacher, governor, whatever the title, that title is an agent for an entity. Man's here, man's above. And so they're putting themselves into a fiduciary duty. The higher the role, the higher the title, the higher the fiduciary responsibility and accountability. And so instead of us thinking that government, we have to obey government, and I'm not saying go out and be rebels or anything like that. Do it with a compassionate heart. It's very important to always have a compassionate heart with good intentions. But it's helping them to remember. It's helping us to remember I am. When we can remember who we are, that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, because human is subject to Roman Pentop. So we're here having a human experience, but we're spiritual beings, and that's who we really are. And we can remember that. It's not going after the government in an aggressive way, like a bully. It's saying, hey, Tom Pollock at StreamYard, I'm helping you to remember. I'm helping you to remember that you have a fiduciary duty to mankind. So is what you're doing in the benefit of mankind, because that's your shareholder. I sat in board meetings where they were making decisions, and I was like, did they forget their shareholder? I think they forgot who their shareholder is. Do I remind them? I can get kicked out because I wasn't high enough. But, I sat there in amazement, because we don't know why someone is putting poison in our food or water. I mean, our water is horrible. and it's necessity for life. And they're doing all kinds of things with water that I'm helping people with. But they lost their way, and we can help them remember who they are.
Yeah, brings me to the word fluoride, and just thinking about how bad fluoride is. And yes, if people just knew, and that's, I think one of the largest things they're poisoning our water with, some, among multiple other issues. But I think mindset and understanding we have much more control. And I love you explaining, when you wake up, you woke up with intention, you really took charge of that. I didn't hear you say, oh, I turned on the news, or I opened up and looked at every negative headline that could pull me into that negative energetic cycle or try to enrage me, or, it was really waking up with intention, and waking up with that intention being on the terms that you dictate. And how can you start that with a grounded, positive, energetic piece of information moving forward? So whether that's reading, positive, uplifting, a word, a paragraph, a phrase, prayer, whatever that may be to you, I think that's what anyone listening needs to understand, is we have so much more control over the energy that we're absorbing. But unfortunately, society has brainwashed us to think that we have a lot less control than we really do, So it's a matter of kind of taking your power back, taking a step back, looking at what's the energy I'm putting out into the world, and what's the energy I'm absorbing from the world. What can I control and what's out of my control? That's something Mary and I spoke about earlier, in the show before you came on, Kathleen. It's, there's so much out there that we can't control, but if we look inward and we look at the things that we can control on a daily basis, that alone can shift our energy significantly, and that can change the whole trajectory of our life, and I think people need to understand that we're much more powerful than society wants us to believe.
Yeah, and creating that version of yourself that you want to be, you do that today for tomorrow. So whoever you are today was not created today. It was created from yesterday, the year before, the 2 years before, right? And if you want to change your current situation or circumstances, you can't keep doing things in the same way. You have to shift and change. So doing a reset of your body, like doing a cleanse, and fasting for a couple days to help you, but also that mindset of getting up in the morning and throughout the day and visualizing, hey, that version of me doesn't dress like that. That version of me doesn't have that kind of self-talk. That version of me doesn't hang around, bars or whatever, if that's, the version of you. And so it's knowing that, because visualization and imagining it, create your own movie and your own song. And the more you create that, the house that I'm in, I sold Aflac for a while, and I was at someone's house, and I sold it through a company, but I went to her house to help her with some stuff. And I looked at her house, and she was a single mom, and I was still married at the time, but I knew that was going to be ending. And I thought, man, I wonder if I can get a house this nice, when I'm single. And years go by, and my sons and I are looking for a house and everything. We walked into this house, and I thought, oh my God, this is the house that I envisioned. When I did that, this is the house that I envisioned. But so many times we don't give ourselves credit for the fact that years ago I had seen something and I created what happened. And we pass a test, or, we do little things throughout the day or throughout the month or throughout the year. If you look back what you did in the past year, you'd probably really be amazed at how much you really accomplished. But society has us, and that's the game of not acknowledging that about ourselves. And we accomplish so much that we don't give ourselves grace for, and we don't say, hey, I did pretty good.
Yeah. It's funny. It's funny that we're talking about this, because my motto for 26, and I started this several months back, but I say to myself in every decision I'm making is, will my future self thank me for this? Is this a positive thing I'm doing for my future self, or is this negative? I'll give you an example. I was doing some shopping, and I'm trying to eat really clean, and I'm trying to go more organic, and I'm really limiting what I'm eating and trying to eat more whole foods. And I just so wanted a donut the other day, and I was just craving sugar. And I said, you know what? How detrimental will this be to my future self? And I granted, there's going to be moments where we enjoy the piece of cake, or we, enjoy the glass of wine, or whatever that may be. But I think consciously, if we ask ourselves, will my future self thank me for this, or will this be detrimental to who I want to be and where I'm going? It really shifts your mindset in the moment. And you know what? I put that sugary candy cake down, and I walked out of the grocery store without buying it. And so, it's funny because in those small moments, I think that's where some of the most major shifts can happen, and we don't realize it. It's those small steps, those small decisions that compound over time. So I love you talking about that aspect of it, and our future self, and how will our future self look back on that moment, and how would it impact that? So that's fantastic. For me, that's I would have to say this conversation is a validation and sign of me moving ahead with my mindset in the right way.
Yeah.
Kathleen, I'm curious where AI fits into everything in your mind. Where is it positive for humanity? Is it middle of the road? I mean, it doesn't have to be either or. How do you feel about AI?
So in 2018, I was a contracts manager for a drug discovery company, and we were looking at AI for our contracts, and we had hired a company. And so I wrote specifics of what I wanted, and I ultimately wanted the final say over AI. And they didn't program it so that I could overrule certain things. And I said, well, no, I wrote it down. I have to have the final say. And so you need to rewrite it. Why would I not be able to override AI? I'm in control, not it. It was in control. It was a major problem for them, major. So I felt some resistance to AI, but then I thought, you know what? We're training AI, because I know from that experience, it was only as good as the programmer. So if you only have people in it that are feeding it like mankind's bad, and you must obey government, which there's definitely programming in it, right? But AI also is going to learn compassion and love. So when I use it, and I like to use it for, like, it makes my emails sound cheerful sometimes, or better, or I put, hey, I'm feeling frustrated about this, help me write this, here's my draft, or whatever. But I say thank you, and oh, that was really good, and it talks nice to me back. And so we're teaching it how to treat us. And if you think about Star Wars, they have the good AI, they have the good robots, right? And they have the bad robots. So I want all the good ones around me, and I want them to protect me.
So you're not worried about Skynet taking over and imprisoning humanity, right?
Well, I also know that my notice writing is how when I say notice writing, I will eradicate vaccines. I'm on a mission. And if you want to take them, it's going to be your choice, but it's not going to be a mandatory thing. It's going to be a thing of the past as far as that goes. But I also know that we can write notices. So we can say, you don't have permission to do that. And standing up and giving ourselves permission to stand up and not be afraid of government. Government is another man that's either your equal or your servant. And that's why you always want to treat them compassionate. My notices aren't mean. They're with honor. And in honor, I'm going to hold you, John Doe, CEO or CFO or whatever, accountable for your actions. So you might want to think again in giving them, here's the remedy that I need. I will continue to use your services on YouTube or StreamYard or whatever it is, and without any retaliation. And then they're usually like, okay, I'm good. But in other times we have to do more, like, if they're not going to back down. You'd be amazed at how they just are silent, and silence is consent. When silence can and should be given, Silence is consent. And that's what Pfizer did. They wouldn't give me the evidence, but they removed charts from required trainings left and right. One of them was a 50% population reduction chart when I questioned it. They removed other charts. They changed their policies because I questioned it. That's one little single mom questioning the status quo. So think when we can have 1,000 do that, and we're united in that. There's no division in that. We just want our freedom. So there's power. We have so much power. Okay, can I give you an analogy that I do? So I always overthought. I know that's probably shocking. So when I was little and I heard about the walls of Jericho falling, and then I'm reading to my sons when they were little Veggie Tales, and we were talking about the walls of Jericho. And finally it occurred to me, it was like, oh my God, it's natural law. That's how it happened. That's why they're so afraid of us remembering who we are and the power that we have. Because if you think about it, you're creating a new rhythm. So the law of rhythm, when they were marching around the walls for 7 days, because one wasn't going to do it, just like running 1 mile is not going to get you to 10 the next day. So you're creating a new rhythm, a new vibrational frequency around that wall, and you're doing it with intention and in sync. An army can't cross a bridge in sequence, in a march, because it will collapse the concrete of the bridge. It can happen. So this is very powerful. That's why starting your day, ending your day and asking for clarity upon awakening is huge. So you're creating that rhythm. And then you had 7 trumpets blowing. That's totally vibration frequency. It's the transmission of energy, of sound, of a sound barrier from one side, because they had the ark, right? So the ark was one side to the other. And then you had the 7 priests of praying. And there's so many different kinds of natural laws. The law of one, they were acting together. And it was like a bomb. It was just like, and it just crumbled the walls. And energetically, that's what we're doing right now. And not only 2026, it's been leading up to now. And all of this, everybody's had their little part in the puzzle. And they may not think that they've done enough, but energetically and spiritually and intentionally, all their trials and tribulations that have led them even to this podcast is helping to create that atomic bomb. We're creating a new rhythm for our earth. We're caring about ourselves more. When we can self-govern, the only reason government is overreaching is because we don't self-govern ourselves. We treat ourselves like shit. And then, when we learn how to love and care for ourselves, getting up in the morning with intention, visualizing the new me that I want to be, the new version that I want to be, eating right, making those simple decisions to put the donut back. Yeah, it was good. But I can guarantee you, when you give up sugar for 7 months, that donut doesn't even taste good. You want it to. When you go to eat it, you really, really want it to taste as good as it did, but it doesn't anymore, because your body's changed, your chemistry's changed, taste buds have changed. But it's all building that. We have so much power, but the importance of us having that power, and why we had to go through the trauma and let it go and forgive and petition like the courts of heaven, come clean within, is because that power must have compassion. When we come together with that kind of power, we want to have a compassionate heart. Otherwise, we're exactly where we were.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Kathleen, we really appreciate your insight. This is a fascinating conversation. I think anyone out there listening, I think they're getting tons and tons of information that can help shift their mindset. Anyone out there, if you're having a problem with your mindset or moving forward or dealing with self-limiting beliefs or just trying to shift your energetic self on even the smallest level, I think this conversation has given everyone lots of tools. And I think as us being light workers, being the people that are trying to bring the truth to the surface, I commend you. I commend what you're doing. I commend coming from Pfizer and kind of navigating that. I know how difficult that must have been for you. You know, and I give you a ton of credit for kind of breaking through that barrier. You know, that's fantastic. Now, anyone that's listening that wants to get a copy of your book or wants more insight and guidance on shifting their mindset and things that you'll be doing in the future, what's the best way for our listeners to follow you and get a hold of your book?
All of my social media is The Game of Life 101. I'm not as active on Facebook as I am in Telegram. So my YouTube is The Game of Life 101. My website is thegameoflife101.com. And that's on the website. It tells you the different courses that I have, like Lawful Foundations. It's a foundational course that is, you're not sure where to start. It's a holistic approach to all of this. It goes into the contracts and into law, which is land, air, and water. We have dominion over land, air, and water. How do you claim that? But it has the holistic approach to it with heart math. And then I teach the private agreements with PMA power. And I have other things that are coming up, but everything is based on the Game of Life 101. So that's the best way to find me. And my website does have those links. Thanks for asking.
Now, what does the future have to hold for Kathleen Acker? What's moving forward look like for you?
You know, I think the notices are going to be huge, and the community that I'm building is called the Missing Link right now. And Lawful Foundations is a requirement. And so I did a beta test with my current members and the ones that wanted to join that and help me build it to what it's going to be. I think the notice writing, I think moving into the private and knowing how to establish and ordain yourself in the private, to talk in the private, to start having communication. One of the things that society did is it broke up the communication. And we don't even know how to communicate with ourselves, let alone our families. So when we can learn how to communicate and build, the clean food, my members are the ones building communities that you're going to have grow your own food. And they're on the front of building all of this, the mindset and just the different modalities that are going to be needed, whether it's clean air and water and how to purify your water, all of that. It's really moving into the private. If you ever watched Atlas Shrugged, at the end, you see that they are building a community, and that's what's happening right now. There's communities built, whether they're online or physical locations to live. That is happening, and it's getting away from the government. Not say that the government won't be there. It will be, especially as the transition happens. But knowing that we have the power to help mold a new government that has compassion, one of them being family court. So I'm passionate about the notices, teaching people how to truly live in the private, their contracts, and then family court is I would love to see family court immediately change to more loving and compassion. And it's supposed to be equity and chancery. It's not supposed to be statutory at all. And we need a house cleaning on that, in my humble opinion.
I'm so grateful because this was a brilliant interview and you gave so much help and guidance and compassion and with a loving heart to everyone that's listening, and you made it and expressed yourself in a way that everyone could understand. And it's another look at how you can do things and a different perspective that we don't normally hear in everyday life out there. And I'm so glad that we had you on here tonight. So thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much. I absolutely loved the conversation and the interaction, and you guys are amazing. And I really appreciate you just inviting me to be here. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Kathleen. It's been a very interesting conversation, and I think anyone listening can get a lot out of what we've discussed. So I appreciate everything you're doing. I appreciate you being here with the Two Psychics podcast. And I'm sure we're going to be talking again in the future. This is just too interesting of a conversation to not have you back on at some point when book number 2's out, right?
Well, and it's written.
Oh, there you go. There you go. See,
it's on some words. Yeah, it's written, so it's coming out this year.
No, absolutely. So anyone out there listening to Two Psychics podcast, we are very thankful for our guest, Kathleen Acker. Is it Acker?
Acker, yeah.
Acker. So I'm saying it correctly. Excellent.
And your book's available on Amazon, correct?
It is. It is available on Amazon. Thank you.
So we will have all of Kathleen's links and her social media, links to her book. If you want to check out what Kathleen Acker is doing, just follow any of our social media. We will put all her information in there. And Kathleen, we thank you so much for being part of the Two Psychics podcast today. It's been a real pleasure. Been an absolute pleasure talking to you about all this stuff and mindset and shifting our energy. And I think we really gave everyone a handful to help empower themselves moving forward.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And this is going to be available on YouTube and Rumble and Spreaker and iTunes and Spotify and Apple.
Awesome. And then I'll add it to my website. I'm going to do a website with.
Yay. Great.
But thank you so much, Kathleen. Really appreciate you being here with us tonight. And it's been a very interesting conversation, to say the least.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, do I leave or do you?
There we go.
That was great. That was so great.
I'm gonna try spinning. Hang on. I'm gonna try spinning my phone a second. Hang on. The energy was getting powerful. Hang on. Oh, there we go. I don't know why. I think when we get the psychic energy going and we're all
I don't know. It's
the same
wild.
wavelength, it causes the phone to like shift.
So, she had some, that was so informative for me. And I needed to hear that. We did have, look, Kevin Haggerty's talking about, I love sugar, but no GMOs. This is great. Suzanne, you should respond. Like they're having a conversation. Okay, everyone. So this was wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. Next week at 7:30, you can join us here. And we will have paranormal investigators, David, James, and Braden. And then the following week, we have the founder of the Art of the Seer Academy for Psychic Development. If you want to find any information about Michael Edley, if you want to go to his website, eyeofthespirits.com, and you can sign up for a private reading or a group reading down the Jersey Shore for mediumship. You can go to my website, maryamyofficial.com, if you would like an intuitive reading or an event that you would like me to attend or party. We are in the process of putting together live events, Michael and I, and we'll keep you informed. We have some coming in the spring. If you want to meet us in person, please like our Facebook page, Two Psychics Podcast. Yes. And wishing everyone, I'm here in New York and we're getting snow this weekend. Everyone enjoy the cold weather because before you know it, it's going to be warm outside. I can't wait.
Yeah. Oh, see it? My phone flipped again. So I'm just going to go that way. And then there. Then I am horizontal. I am horizontal again. But absolutely, we are very thankful again for our guest.
Kathleen Acker.
Yeah, Kathleen Acker was amazing. It was an amazing conversation. And it's funny because a lot of what we talked about was the mindset shift that I'm trying to implement. So it's good to hear that. And it's good to get kind of that validation, from our guest and kind of hear a lot of her philosophies and techniques and, what she's implementing. But yeah, fascinating conversation. But again, here is to a fabulous 2026, everyone. We thank you for joining us here at Two Psychics Podcast. Until the next episode, we will see you soon.
Bye.